Hey everybody, welcome to the 1947 Rise podcast, a podcast that helps India-born, US-trained Indians get integrated into the Indian technology ecosystem and inspires them to move back to India to build massive tech companies and or help enable the tech ecosystem. We do this by interviewing India-born, US-trained Indians who have moved back to India and built massive tech companies themselves and or helped enable the tech ecosystem. I'm excited to have Anirudh Pandita with me today on 1947 Rise. Anirudh is the founder of Loco and Pocket Aces. Loco is India's leading gaming streaming platform. Anirudh is focused on building the future of entertainment in India. Prior to Loco, Anirudh worked in Goldman Sachs and a bunch of other places, mainly in finance, and he got his MBA at Wharton School. Anirudh, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shiva. So excited to be here. Finally, we've managed to make it happen.
Absolutely. Let's start by you giving us your journey of growing up in India and then moving to the US and then moving back to India. What made you move back to India?
Yeah, so I am actually born in Kashmir. I'm a Kashmiri Pandit. So I've seen interesting strife and difficult times when I started life. And so we moved, obviously, had to move from Kashmir to Delhi, where I grew up. And then from Delhi, I moved to Kuwait, where my parents still live there. They work there. And it's been an interesting, diverse childhood for me, in various different cultures and very difficult and different experiences, right? So when we are now in a world with a lot of strife, I don't feel so completely alien to that because we grew up with a lot of that. And human mind tends to forget that, but it happens every so often. Growing up was a great experience. Couldn't have asked for a better childhood. I think the hard times made you value the good times. Went to America to get my engineering degree at the University of Illinois, which is also home to many entrepreneurs like Mark Andreessen, the founders of PayPal, founders of YouTube, these kind of guys. And so you always had great role models in front of you. And I primarily went to school in the US. I had never been to the US before, so it was completely new for me. And I went there primarily because I was not sure that engineering is what I wanted to do, and I had great interest in how ventures are built, businesses are built. But I'm from a family of no entrepreneurs, right? So there was no dinner table conversation around, whether a order aa gaya hai or, if something is late and what's the price of X, Y, or Z. Our dinner table conversations were much more about, what's happening in sports, what's happening in the country, what's happening in the world of entertainment. So it was much more pop culture. But, for me, I had an interest in how ventures are built, how markets work. So I thought that if, I got into the IITs as well. So I thought that if I go to the IITs, I might get stuck in one field, frankly. So I wanted to maintain that optionality. So I went to the US. I'd never been there before. So it was a completely new and interesting experience. I think it really shaped the way I think today. We saw so much transformation during that time. To give you a sense, there was no iPod when I went to college. At the risk of dating myself too much, there was, in fact, one of my favorite memories in college, and maybe blasphemous a bit in India, is that in the US the books are very expensive, right? So you sell them to used bookstores and used bookstores and try to make an extra buck or two which you can buy new books from or whatever. And I remember in my last semester I sold my books and I was like, oh, I have like $200, $300. What do I do with this now? It was like, for us, it was like bonanza, like as if I'd won a lucky draw. Mm-hmm. So we went and bought an iPod, and I still have that iPod. So, Facebook also released during that time. There was obviously no Uber, no Airbnb, no Snapchat, none of this. WhatsApp was also not there. So, in fact, the iPhone itself had not been invented, right? And had not been disclosed to the public. And I think the year after I graduated, the first iPhone came out. So it was a transformational time. It really shaped the way I think. A lot of my friends and future business acquaintances, most of them are friends, are from there. So it was a really, really great experience. And then I, thought that, look, I've done engineering. I've learned the basics of how things are built. Now I need to go to understand how things are financed, how businesses work. And I always joke my undergraduate education in business came from going to Wall Street, working in banking. And what was the busiest time to be in banking? I mean, recently maybe it's also been busy, but oh 05, oh 06, oh 07, those were big years right before the global financial crisis obviously came. And so I saw a lot of deal flow, a lot of interesting businesses. I also was one of the fortunate few who worked on many deals at the beginning and closed a lot of deals. I worked in the healthcare sector, and what healthcare gives you a view into is it has many subsectors, right? It has a financial subsector, which is insurance, something which is much more consumer like, which is medical technology. You also have something which resembles a lot more what the startup world today looks like, which is biotech. Right. And so you understood how different businesses get built. And I think that was great for me. And then I got moved to London and I moved to Dubai, worked in various different sectors, primarily consumer focused. And that really taught me how businesses are built, worked in banking and private equity. And then I went to Wharton to get a formal business education or a graduate degree. And I think I cherish that time a lot because I was not very convinced that business school is the right way to go. And I think anyone who's ever applied to business school will relate to this. They have the same problems in your mind. You're like, should I go out of the workforce for 2 years? Especially you come from a mindset like mine where I was like, I'm going to waste 2 years. I'm also going to miss out on so much money that I was making as salary, etc. Right? You were in this fixed mindset at that time. So I think going there changed my mindset. Like I got a lot of time to think about things, and I think that's the most invaluable thing. And of course, over time, the friends I made, the things I learned have only compounded in value. Then graduated from there and was working at a hedge fund when Ashwin, who was my roommate in college at the University of Illinois, he had just moved back to India to experience the media sector and films in particular. So he used to keep messaging me saying, hey, read the script, see this interesting thing I'm working on. And then, after 1 year working in the US, he said, like, let's explore the media sector together. I'm thinking of leaving. So I also had some visa issues. So I was like, okay, if America won't have me, I need to go see some other interesting geographies. And, growing up in the Middle East, every single thing that was built around me, and then working in Dubai especially, I think you saw like these massive buildings getting built essentially by Indians. You were in the US, you saw these massive companies getting built by Indians, all the CEOs, etc. And so you always felt growing up that why is this not happening in India? And I think the time when I moved to India around 2013, 2014, that was changing. And I always talk about this. We were going from what I call a rent-seeking economy or a rent-based economy to an innovation-based economy. So, rent-based economy is essentially you have a license to build a telco or a mine or operate a mine or run some plant. You work with the bank, you work with the government, you manage those, and you kind of are essentially in business, right? And so what you have before matters a lot. Capital matters a lot, connections matter a lot, ability to manage regulations matter a lot. I think the advent, especially of Flipkart, I think transformed India. I think to see two guys who really had nothing, turn their idea and their vision into a very useful and daily product where you saw it all around you. I think that was pretty inspiring. And then, of course, there were many at that time, right? I think India just had that journey. And I remember using Paytm for the first time, using Uber in India for the first time. All of those things, you felt like, oh, I could be anywhere in the world now, because the difficulties and the problems we always felt with India, that infrastructure kharab hai, things are not moving in the right direction. It's hard to do business. Those things were getting easier. Living became easier. Internet was everywhere, right? So those things really helped. And I started seeing the innovation-based businesses also getting built. So I think that was a key focal point for me. I felt like, okay, if it's not going to be now, when I'm 50 years old, I'm not going to, regret whether I've, made a certain move at 48 or 52. What I will definitely regret is not experiencing what I always dreamed of as a kid, that India will advance. And, your podcast also called 1947 Rise. Like, there's a strong freedom and independence, that we want as a country. So I felt that, okay, for ventures, this is the time. And I said, let me go experience it for a year, see what happens. And then we'll go from there. I'd never been to Bombay before, so it was a surprise for me. Like I said, I grew up earlier, was mostly in the north, in Delhi and in J&K. So I had a very different viewpoint on what Bombay will be like. But today it's home for me. So it's been an amazing journey, and of course we'll discuss the ventures as well. But yeah, that's how I came back, and yeah, I've never left since.
Yeah, no, you've had a very interesting life experiences as of now, right? In the beginning, wasn't easy. A lot of things that you've seen, I guess that was good in a way, in hindsight at least. It set you up for bigger things later on. And then, you knew how to build things. You went to US, got the experience, the exposure there. I went to, do your masters to really learn how to build, businesses are built, right? And then banking. And I'm glad that, the dinner conversations were not about businesses. They were mostly around pop culture and entertainment. Otherwise, Loco wouldn't have been, wouldn't be there, right? And I guess everything happens for a reason. And I'm glad that you're
Yeah,
back. And let's
I think I
talk
wanted
about.
to, I wanted to pick up on a point that which you just said, which is, Loco wouldn't have happened. I think you're absolutely right. I think both the ventures actually would not have happened. Every single thing I learned growing up, obviously apart from my discussing with my parents, was through the television. And there is this whole narrative that the internet is bad and social media is bad. And yes, there are obviously negative elements to everything. But today, if you want to learn something, it's very easy. Go on YouTube, type how to do X, and you can know that.
Yeah.
And I think I also we didn't travel much when we were younger, but having a Nat Geo or Discovery, you saw so many things. Sports, which is kind of fundamental, core to my being. I love sports. I'm a big fan. I used to play a lot of sports also, but that also came through television, right? And those things would not have happened if I didn't have people in my life. Like my parents were not so strict. They're like, TV mat dekho, ye mat karo. They were always open. Go have good experiences. My dad bought, after much annoyance from my side, I annoyed him a lot that I need a gaming console. So that time it used to be those 10,000 in one type games. That you played games as a fun thing. And I think growing up playing games helped me, think through how we're going to build, Loco as well. So you're absolutely right about that. I think that's a very important thing to have happened.
Yeah, and let's talk about Pocket Aces real quick, and we'll dig deeper into Loco, how all that came about.
Yeah, like I said, Ashwin, my co-founder at Pocket Aces, he was thinking of starting some venture in media. He didn't know what. He felt there was an interesting opportunity in general, and I think that's usually for people who want to start things. That's how things happen. You get a sense for something's going to change. You're feeling it firsthand, or you're feeling that pain yourself, that angst yourself. I was looking to come back, so I felt okay. This is a cool thing. I have someone who's trusted dear friend, but also someone I had built things with before. Him and I had built a cricket team before. We had worked on a investment banking club, so we knew how to handle ups and downs, how to handle conflicts, how to get out of groupthink, right? So I felt comfortable that we could start something together. And he had become a sector expert, right? He had worked in the film industry for a bit. So I felt he knows the industry a bit. So I was a generalist coming in, so I needed someone who at least had some view into the industry. So I think we got started, and just like every other venture, the first idea we had is terribly naive and silly in comparison to what we've actually ended up building. And as people who are looking to start businesses, who I'm sure there are many on your podcast who listen to your podcast, your final idea and your initial idea will be very different. Usually you don't have to get fixated so much on what is the quality of my idea, which is a very weird thing that people get fixated on. But of course, that's how we've been taught, especially if you work in big companies. You analyze everything to death, and the reality is that the analysis will never work in your favor, because the odds are never in your favor. It's not like the expected value of your outcome is going to be just right and you can take a risk or you can start a venture. It always comes from a feeling of pain, deep passion for something, an exploratory spirit, and a problem or an idea that doesn't leave you, right? And for us, we felt, look, the film industry's cultural context, Indian film industry's cultural context and economic context were highly divergent. Like, you go to any country and you will always feel that people know Indian culture, like they know Indian movies. They would have heard of Shah Rukh Khan, they would have heard of, even as far back as Raj Kapoor, right? Mm-hmm. They go back and they say, okay, yeah, we'll do like this. So we do like this kind of content. And my grandfather used to hear it. And so you feel, oh, like these guys know about it, then how come our box office is only $1 billion big in the Hindi film industry? That was what it was in 2013, 2014. And with the South, whether it's Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, primarily Tamil, Telugu, it was another billion that they were pulling in. And they were doing much better work as they continue to do now, I feel. So $2 billion, and you look at Lord of the Rings and you're just doing $2 billion by itself. You're like, what's going on, man? Like, either our business is really broken or our content is broken. And the reality is that, so we felt that, oh, look, like this is a problem we could solve. We dug deeper into what was going on, and we came up with a thesis. And our thesis was, look, guys like Salman and Shah Rukh and Amir, like they're not stupid, right? They, there's always like, when you hang out with the film types, there's always like, they make bad content. content. Kharab content banate hain, masala content banate hain. Why don't we make content-based films? And the answer actually lay in a very simple thing is that if you make films for India and you have to make the economics work for yourself, you end up opening films in 5,000 screens or so. So means you're making for everybody in India, and so you end up making a hodgepodge of stuff because you want the whole family to be happy. So actually, nobody's really happy at the end of it. Everybody is kind of okay, and then nobody's really unhappy, right? So you're basically managing that experience for them at the theater, really. Versus making genre-based films where only specific audiences come. And if you make a genre-based film in India, you may not have a deep enough audience to make a profit. So we felt, okay, let's make genre-based films, and we have it such that the urban centers in India at least help us cover our cost, and then we go abroad for the profits, right? This is kind of like the naive idea that we had, and we believed it truly because we generally felt there was a problem, and our first angel round was raised on that, and then we started, and we nearly made a movie, and we bought rights to multiple things, some of which we still own, and actually we bought rights to things like from people who have now won multiple Oscars, which is unbelievable given that we were really just two kids or two young people just starting off. And I think that also shows you how far you can go if you, suspend your cynicism for a bit and take a leap forward. So we started like that, and then, it was not working out very well. It was, and when I say very well, we were very close to making a movie. But what we felt was, and what the reality became was that getting everybody's dates was taking time. And we didn't want to make something with someone who's either less talented or, we wanted the right people. We wanted the right, both on the technical side as well as the marketing side, creative side. And we had gotten a lot of those things together in an unbelievable manner. I mean, I pitched one of India's biggest stars. He used to come to my gym, and I just pitched him he was running next to me on a treadmill, and I just pitched him saying, "Hey," he's like, "Who are you, bro? Like, I don't know you." And and then I started got chatting with him, and he said, "Why don't you come to my house? And it sounds interesting. You sound like an honest person." And he was very open to doing the film. So, but then his dates didn't align with the director's dates, and Ashwin and I then sat back and said, "Look, like this doesn't look like a startup. This is the opposite of a startup, where time is going and we're not able to move fast. So it's a slow moving creature, high fixed costs where you have to put a lot of money up front towards all these people. And there is no ability to pivot, right? Like by the time you release a film, your film and its sensibilities may not align with the audience anymore. So very quickly we started thinking that, look, we need to change the model. We need to be in a place where we're rapidly releasing content. And we actually went to Cannes. There was a MIP TV conference there. And we were already in our mind thinking about digital content. We had sat back and had this discussion, like I was telling you about, this is too slow. The film is too slow. It's almost anti-innovation. What do we do? Can we make something in digital? That's what we saw around us in 2015, late 2014, early 2015, is that everybody, if you walked into a building, right from the gatekeeper or the receptionist who greeted you all the way up to the person you wanted to meet, and people who were riding the elevator with you, everybody was watching little clips on their phone, right? And that time mostly YouTube was being watched, and the early internet, obviously, right? And people used to monitor how much data they're using and all that. So that's when we felt that, look, if this is the future, we have to build for the future, which is where disruption is taking place. And we didn't see any media company around us. And we had this fortune of actually meeting so many people in the media industry the year before. None of them were really focused on this problem. Most of them didn't, frankly, even believe that the phone would take over. They were like, this will never happen. And as young people who had seen disruption happen in many other fields, we were like, no, 100% it's going to happen. There is no way that we will have just shared screen experiences. It's too good not to. As a value proposition. And so we went to Cannes, like I was telling you, went to MIP TV, which is a conference there where a bunch of guys come and talk about what they've done. A bunch of these big television companies, now what we call OTTs. At that time, they were just weird companies, new companies trying to do some innovative things. They were innovation category. But we saw like Netflix said, oh, we'll do X number of originals. And they were huge. They were like 20, 30 originals. We saw even someone like a Vice or BuzzFeed, they were saying, we'll do X, huge number of originals. And we're like, wow, like this is a different world. And we were, it's as if like you had seen the mountain from far away. And then now you came close by and you're like, wow, it's huge. It's real. It's not a figment of my imagination. It exists. So that's when we came back and we changed the model completely. We had gotten a small team together. All those people are very famous now. You know all of them. they were just friends of ours or people we had met with a similar mission of transforming content. And then we quickly figured out that, look, our mission has to be to entertain people on the mobile phone, and we have to figure out how that works. And that's how Pocket Aces, as you know it, has come to be. It was obviously a company made for film initially, and immediately as we went direct to consumer, we realized that the name also doesn't work, right? So people used to call us and say, "Arey, Pocket Aces hai, Pocket Axes hai," and we're like, no, it's Pocket Aces. And I remember even our logo was initially made on one of these 99 design type things. And most of the submissions that came in were just a pocket with two aces in it. And we're like, no, it's not literally a pocket with aces. Like, can we have a different design? And we actually found our designer through that, one of these, crowdsourced websites. And he designed a lot of stuff for us till very recently. And he doesn't live in India. He did it in spare time, right? Which also tells you about, we always talk about work from home now. We talk about gig economy. We saw signs of that early, right? We don't know this guy. I've never met him. Only exchanged emails, had a few Google calls. He's an Indian guy in Australia, and he was cool about, he said, I work in my spare time. This will be a nice project for me. So pay me whatever you like. It's just a fun thing for me. So I was like, that's insane. So we did that, and that's how we got started. And the first thing we started was Dice Media, which was essentially us being very arrogant, I think, in retrospect, saying, oh, we know better what content India wants to watch. Let's pipe it directly to them. And our fallacy in our thinking was compounded by the fact that the first video we ever made went super viral. Like, it went mega viral. I think must have like 20, 30 million views, completely organically. And we felt, wow, this is so easy. Like, why do people praise these other companies that are out there? And then we failed a lot. But at the same time, we started Filter Copy. And Filter Copy was like our experiment channel. That was where we tried things. And quickly we realized actually the magic is in trying things, because what you think you know is not actually correct. It is correct some of the time, but not all of the time. Whereas by experimenting, you find answers quickly and on the cheap. And I think that changed our model completely. And then I think we never looked back. We also chose Facebook as our first distribution medium, which was again kind of against the prevalent logic at that time. It was contrarian to some extent. And because everybody was on YouTube, we just felt like everybody's on YouTube, so they already have stars there, so we should become a star on some other platform. And that was Facebook. And then soon Facebook made us so famous that people started searching on YouTube, so we became big on YouTube also. And then we started making conscious choices about where consumers were going to go, and we were super data driven, unlike most creators, because I always say, like, creativity is overrated in the sense that what people think is creativity is not creativity. It's just excuses for not performing. And you can use data very well to inform your gut, and then sometimes you follow data, sometimes data follows you. But this hypothesis-based content creation worked extremely well for us, and we scaled very, very quickly, and that's how the firm got started.
A lot of learnings, a lot of pivots. Ignorance typically is good a lot of the times. Anirudh, I think now you're scaling Loco really fast. I think you have users in millions. Would love to understand more where Loco is today, and what's the magical outcome you have in mind for Loco.
I think we're in a 10-15 year phase where what hanging out means is changing pretty dramatically. And what has happened is the lockdown and what we've experienced, the collective trauma, I would say, and the disruption to how we used to live has happened in the last couple of years, right? In fact, I always now use this term last year as if like 2020 was last year, because there's been such a long continuum of time and you've lost track. But interesting thing that's happened during this time is we spent so much time online. Like, you and I are doing this online. I remember people who had called me for the first 2-3 podcasts I'd done. They were in person in a studio with fancy equipment and cramped studio, but all this great equipment. And I was like, wow, I felt really legit. I was like, oh, I must have made it in life that someone has asked me to come here. But the reality is the output is, that's a bad way of thinking, because the output is better in this way. We've quickly gotten this done. I'm in a different country, you're in a different country, we've moved around. But the output is going to be, your listeners are going to be listening to it very quickly. And I think hanging out online has fundamentally changed. And I think for us, you asked me what the thinking is around Loco, is that, the first wave of entertainment got democratized by the social platforms. Right? What you have to say, that it's not just that some guy on a pulpit in a newspaper can tell us what to think. We can put our thoughts out in the world. There's good and bad to that, obviously, but from an entertainment and pure entertainment lens, it's been excellent because the amount of talent that's come out, has been amazing. We have utilized a very different time band, especially with short form content. So with gaming, I feel it's these two things coming together, which is that you have a completely new way of hanging out online. And I always compare it to sports because, sports was not just that I like throwing a ball, right? Like, or like you like kicking a ball. I mean, that's like saying you like video games, but it's also about the skill and the strategy, right? The skill is how well I throw the ball or how well I place it. Strategy of how you win in a game, how you approach it, how you play in a team, and then the act of just hanging out. Like most of my friends in life have come from sports that I played with them, right? And activities I've done with them, but mostly sports, right? Either watching or playing. And then later in life, it became more about video games as I became more and more unfit. I started playing more games online, but the excitement still remained. And I just feel that hanging out online, that aspect is what games today allow you to do, which was not possible earlier. Right? You played a HTML5 game, could not really hang out. It was like, okay, you're playing, it's entertaining, but it's not, it's a single person, one person entertainment versus, you and me go out in a BGMI map and we're just hanging out and we die from time to time. But most of the time we're chatting about other stuff, right? And yeah, once in a while, if we're actually that good, we get competitive and we start competing and getting better at that part of it. So for us, the key thought is always to democratize this gaming entertainment. Basically, for me, gaming allows you to break through constraints, right? It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter what your sex is, what your religion is. Your skill, your hard work, your hustle, your grind, they matter a lot. And, whether you're an entertainer, like you have fun while playing these games, or whether you are someone who's competitively really good, those are just things that, you can today have a phone and either become that entertainer, either through your skill or skill in, maybe say comedy or how you present content or in how you play. You can get entertained. Open the phone, you see it. And the great thing is that you don't have to be a silent spectator. You can get involved. You can tell them how you feel. You can play the game also. So it's not like I see a movie and then I don't know, like, okay, I don't know how they do it and I have no idea. Whereas in a game, if I see you playing BGMI, I can download BGMI, quickly start playing it. I'm like, oh, cool. Everything makes much more sense now. And you experience it in a more deeper manner than anywhere else. So for me, Loco is now a place where, all of this happens. And like I said, as we are, hanging out online, where do we share our experiences of hanging out online? So, when we talk about real life experiences, right, whether it's a fun trip you went on, a party you went on, just meeting a friend, seeing an interesting thing, you should take a picture or something you used to put it on Facebook, now you put it on Instagram. Maybe some people put it on WhatsApp. But those are real world experiences. What about virtual experiences? Where do we put those? Where do we make those connections now online, right? And I think that's what Loco is it's essentially us building a social experience platform for the virtual world. And if today you and I played a game and we had a fun session, or we had a 1v4 kill that you did an amazing crazy thing in a game, or a comedy moment in a GTA game. If you put it up on Facebook, like your grandmom is on Facebook, right? So it is not the right community anymore. It's very different from when I started using Facebook as my primary, community or primary page. I would just see where my friends are now. People are kind of doing it on Instagram. But for this use case where it's us hanging out virtually, you're going to get a lot of weird stares from friends, family, etc. if you do it on just Facebook or even Instagram to that extent. So community of gamers, the people who are hanging out online, which is a lot of young people, we are trying to make that come alive in Loco and make it an interactive, fun experience. And I think it's not a short journey. It's going to be a long 10, 15-year journey where platforms may change on us and we have to provide the same value tomorrow, whether it's VR headset or whether it's, using some of the new tools and technologies that have come for us, whether Web3, which I really, really am a big believer is changing the fan experience completely. These things are, as I think about the world 10 years from now, I feel like these are things that will exist on Loco. So long way to go. We are at the center of the gaming universe through streaming, but there's a lot of things we are building around it, which will make it a really, really fun place to be.
Yeah, no, love it, Anirudh. Excited for you and the team at Loco. Look, I think your experiences in life have probably shaped you as an interesting person. And why I say that is like moving to a bunch of different places, working in different industries, and living in again like US and back. When let's say what frameworks do you use when things are not working out for you? Right, you've pivoted many times. It's been a very long journey, and still it's going to be a long journey ahead. Framework that you use to bring yourself back on track.
Look, this question that you asked me is a really interesting question. I've not really been asked this on a podcast before, but I think it's a very relevant question. And one of the things that I always talk about is how PMF, which is the holy grail of what we do, right? Or MPF, whichever order you like saying the term. And I actually like market work quite a bit. The M is dynamic. It's not a static concept. It's not like you can say I found PMF, so that's it. I'm going to rest on my laurels. The reality is the M keeps changing, and which is why new products are needed all the time, because the market and consumer behavior, consumer expectations, pains all keep evolving. So both from a business and I'll answer your question in two different dimensions. One is on the business side, one is on the professional side. On the personal side. So on the business side, I always look at taking a step back and seeing what the truth is, right? Under all the sales, under all everything that you're saying, you have to know what the truth is. Is my business hitting the PMF metrics that I like? What is the truth behind my business? Is it solving the core problem, right? And I always look at that, right? And sometimes the data is a bit behind. So you look at leading indicators, look at soft data. Are people, like, for example, for my platform, I look at, do people message me? What are they saying in their messages? Are they angry? Are they happy? If they're angry, it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing, because, anger means they care. Like, they want something. Like, there is an deep, and, that for the first year in Loco, I used to get a lot of angry messages. This is not working. This is broken. Right? So it helped me essentially build the product. And when they're happy, of course, you are obviously very, very full of gratitude that you're making such a big difference, and gives you positive encouragement. So always look, for me, the framework that I look at is, what are the PMF indicators? Is there a core value in the business that's being built? And what do I need to change? And what are the top things I need to prioritize? Because you don't have infinite time, right? And you need to prioritize and do a few things. And then I look at kind of how much time do I have? Is it something that can be solved right away, or does it need to be something that I can solve slowly? Because then I can prioritize things even better. And so having that sort of understanding what is important and how urgent it is gives you some sense. But I think the most important is always to just take a step back and say, okay, nothing matters. However wrong it is, whatever it is, you can take a step back, and tomorrow you have to do one small task. So what is that task going to be? How's it going to help you to get to your end goal? So I think evaluating the metrics, being honest to yourself, and having that ability. And then one thing I use very often is essentially writing things down. So if I feel something is bothering me or something needs to be investigated, looked at, I usually write a note. And I don't like presentations. I completely am a big believer in the so-called Amazon way of writing things, where you actually write a state of the union. You write, a lot of our product processes at Loco are run with that sort of thought process. But writing things down helps you immensely. It helps you kind of be honest to yourself, because you will know, the critical thinking will come out in front of you. You will know where your gaps are. You will know, I don't know this, this might be wrong, this might be a hypothesis that needs testing. So immediately it gives you a roadmap of how to fix things when things are not going so well, right? And you go back to the basics. So I think that's important. And then I think on the personal side, right, and when I mean your personal life or on your professional life, and they're both obviously dependent on each other. On the personal side, I always try and disconnect a bit from the noise. And this could be by traveling somewhere else, by cutting yourself off from the internet for a bit, ensuring that you have some time to yourself to just think. because till you bend time to your needs, you are always reacting to things. So this is like, in cricket, they always say, right, like Saurav Ganguly coming late to a toss, or like you waiting for the bowler to come bowl to you, versus just constantly pummeled, which is what you feel like usually when you're losing or you're behind. You take a step back and create that gap, and then you create, for me, I create atmospheres that remind me of my most positive or most productive being, right? So that could be the where I sit, that could be what I drink, what I eat, when I work, books and things. You always talk to your idols through books, because they talk to you. Just rereading those things helps you a lot in just getting your mind right. And then I use Headspace quite a bit. It helps me tremendously to just get your mind space in the right place. And I think then realizing that nothing is as bad as it looks or as good as it looks. There's always, if you're doing well, something will go wrong. If you're doing something's looking very bad, there's always a silver lining. Something good will come out of it. So finding that is important. And then lastly, something I've done for a long time, but has been reinforced by advice that I've received from some of the people who have invested in our company, and also some of the sporting giants who I follow, is essentially controlling the controllable, right? If tomorrow there is a regulation, right, that you don't know about, there's nothing you can do about it. It's really not in your control. So having this deep sense of anxiety about it will not help you, right? So sometimes I almost feel like if I feel regulations out of my hand, I'm like, look, this is going to land in my favor anyway, or going to land against me anyway. Like, there's nothing I can do about it. So in either case, what is my plan? What can I control today? And that's the only thing you can worry about. And focus a lot on the execution. I think that's the other thing I always tell myself then, is like, okay, if something has gone wrong, what can I do well tomorrow? Because what is gone, I can't change that. So I think those are important things. I think taking care of yourself mentally, physically, obviously at that time is also important. But it's, the sports aspect of it, which is, if you talk, when I was younger, I didn't understand it, even though I played a lot more sport at that time, which was, people always talk about the mental side of the game. And I think as I've gotten older, that's been more and more in my mind, that my mind has to be right. My mindset has to be right. And, you are skilled enough usually if you're playing a particular level, right? Even whether you're doing a startup or whatever, where you have the skills to execute. If you don't, then obviously get skilled. That's also an answer. But just making sure that your mindset is right is quite important. And I think surround yourself. Last year, surround yourself with the right kind of people who are not just telling you, comforting lies. They tell you the unpleasant truths, because that helps you do what I told you. The very first thing, which is that if you're not able to figure out something is wrong, they tell you XYZ things are possibly wrong. And rather getting mad at them, you should say, okay, are what they're saying the truth? Is what this person has just told me, is it reality? Because sometimes your version of reality is wrong. Because as soon as you get that reality check, I think you will react in the right way.
No, well, the life and the world is weird, right? I think it's important to have the right frameworks, stay mentally, physically, and emotionally fit. Other things will probably, and again, it's like most things are probables, come into the place. And Anirudh, if let's say money and attention are not needed anymore, what would you work on?
I actually don't worry about money or attention, weirdly. So, one framework that I do use very, very often is essentially, is something I'm going to do, is that going to hurt reputation or cause financial ruin, right? This is, if those two things are not being impacted, I don't worry about it. I try and see how best can I provide value to something, right, which I find interesting. And luckily, I am someone who finds, self-motivation and finds a lot of things interesting. You could put me in front of a building and say, figure out how to build this building, or could put me in a sport and say, figure out how to make this thing better. And I find enough motivation. There are things I don't like so much in particular, or certain problems I may not like, but I don't work for either of those things. I work primarily to create value for other people. When I see other people using the tool, feeling happy, doing something which they couldn't do earlier, that motivates me quite a bit. Like attention, and it's funny because actually I work in an attention business. We have monetized that as well. The point is that both of those don't make any difference at 3 a.m. when you're trying to solve something. It has to be something inside of you which is burning. And so I always, for me, that finding that problem is important. That's why, I also ask my team to do this, which is, don't worry about the answers, worry about the questions. If the questions are interesting for you, you will find there are many answers to questions, right? I actually say life is often like a, painting competition. It's not a science or a mathematics exam where there is only one answer. there's usually 3, 4 different things that can work, and it's like a painting competition. You see someone told you to draw a day out with your family. The first prize would go to someone who drew a mountain. Second prize would go to someone who's drawn a beach. Third prize could be someone who's gone to Mars. Right? That's what they've drawn. The point is that all three are the right answer. Some obviously become dominant solutions or whatever, but there is enough to do usually when all boats are rising, and you're especially in the startup world. So that's how I kind of think about this particular topic.
Love it, Anirudh. Thanks a lot for making the time and coming on the podcast. I had fun hanging out with you. It was so much fun. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and you've got me thinking much more about how I work versus what I've done. So I like that, and I think that's going to stay with me.